half a day, and welcome to Coffee with the Candidates. This series was created to educate and inform Guam's voting population on the positions candidates running for office take on some of the island's most controversial topics. In this episode of Coffee with the Candidates, Republican senatorial hopeful Amanda Blas will share her political platform. As well, our first congressional delegate candidate, Democrat Nicolas, will talk about his plans if elected as Guam congressman.
Half a day, you are tuned in to Coffee with the Candidates. My name is Pauline Suba of CAD FM, and I am here with candidate Amanda Blas.
Hi, Polly. Thank you for having me. And once again, my name is Amanda Blas, and I do humbly ask for your vote this election.
So, rumor is that you're the youngest candidate for the 35th, or trying to become senator in the 35th legislature.
I am. I'm 26.
Right.
I graduated from Notre Dame in 2009. Got my Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from University of Portland in 2012. I decided I wanted to further my education when I moved back to Guam. So I pursued my Master of Public Administration, and I proudly graduated and became a UOG Triton alumni this past December. So right now I'm currently working on my doctorate of public administration through Capella University, and I think it's an indication of the strength and the possibilities that Guam has when it comes to their next generation.
Well, definitely sound like a go-getter. And my friends and I, we've talked about how, you know, now people our age are running for senator, and I blinked and now there's people younger than me running for senator. So it speaks volumes about yourself and your generation. Are you going to come into the 35th legislature as a leader of your generation, or of what specific group of people?
Well, my motto is the voice of a new generation, so definitely I wanted to make sure that my generation had representation. But I also want to let everyone know that I am a representative of all generations. You know, I was raised by my grandparents. They were part of the war survivor generation. They taught me great values such as integrity, honesty, and hard work. I was raised by a wonderful single mother, who her generation obviously came after that. And I think the most important thing for Guam, because we're such a close-knit and family community, is that we all work together, all of our generations work together. And one thing that I feel is that the previous generations really laid the groundwork for my generation to come in and lead. And I think it's our time to also assist in that.
Right. Some of your maybe heroes or people that have inspired you to be such a go-getter, somebody that just goes after what they feel like they want in life?
You know, I would definitely say one of my biggest inspirations is former Governor Joe Atta. Not just because he's also a University of Portland alumni, he was one of the first University of Portland graduates from Guam, but also just I've seen the groundwork that he's laid. You know, I was the executive director for Commission on Decolonization for 15 months, and he played a big role in the self-determination movement on Guam. He opened a lot of new opportunities for locals. You know, the tourism industry thrived under his leadership, and just seeing how much he went to bat for our people on Guam really inspired me, and that's what I would like to do as well.
As director of the decolonization, I was actually there at the One Guam debate, and I saw your message right before everybody spoke and everything. What would you like Guam to be? Where would you like Guam to be at in the next 8 years? When it comes to decolonization?
No, definitely I would like our island to be more educated. There's still a lot that can be done with education, which is the reason why the Commission has changed the way that it educates. You know, we're in an age of technology, so for example, one of the biggest successes I would say during my time as executive director working with the Commission was creating an online archive of newspaper articles and all relevant documents and materials from the library that can help people learn about the decolonization process, Guam self-determination history. So that's definitely where I'd like to see Guam more educated. And of course, I would like to see us decide our own political future. I feel a lot of times, you know, we're just handed down mandates and we don't have any say, and I think that needs to change.
Right. For me in my circle, we've always talked about how we would like to start seeing people vote more on policy rather than the person. So my question would be, what kind of policies would you be working towards if you were in the 35th legislature?
Sure. So I'm a big fan of technology. I feel we're in a time where we have to do more with less, and I feel like technology will help us achieve that. You know, I think our government can be moved forward into the 21st century. So one of the first bills I'd like to proffer is the possibility of a technology modernization plan for government-wide. I think that all the agencies, you know, we use technology, obviously.
Right.
And I believe that there has to be a system or a platform that connects all of our agencies, but at the same time also serves those individual agencies' needs. So that's definitely one of the first bills I'd like to look at.
Right. I know that our generation, your generation, and younger, very able when it comes to social media and such. My father and my grandparents, not so much. And those people seem to be the big part of the voting pool. How are we going to be able to help those people move forward as far as social media is concerned or technology is concerned in the government?
Well, social media is just one aspect, I think. You know, for me, technology means efficiency. For example, in places in the States, you know, we can do our renewal for our driver's license online or even through tablets and whatnot. And I think one of the biggest things for older generations is that it could bring services to them that they can't necessarily go to. And that's my thing. I think government should be accessible in every way, shape, and form. So that's where the direction I'd like to take it for other generations who aren't too comfortable with technology. Of course, it would take some easing into, you know, it's not like tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're just going to have iPads working and all of that, but it's definitely a learning curve that I think our island can go through together. And there's programs I know in the States, for example, that go out to community centers, senior citizen centers, that do teach them the value of technology. So maybe it's time Guam institutes those kind of programs.
I could totally see like my 10-year-old son teaching my mom how to get their driver's license through a tablet or something.
And it's a great bonding moment, really.
Right? Yeah, I think it will definitely smoothen lines and whatnot at the DMV or wherever. Is there any other policies that you'd be working on, or is 2 years pretty much we can only really focus on one?
Well, at this time, that's the area I'm looking at, technology to make the government more accessible, efficient, and transparent. But of course, that could change should I be given the honor of being part of the 35th legislature. You know, everybody knows that the needs of our island change rather fast, and with those needs comes the need for policy. So at this time, that's where my focus is. But of course, it will change as our community needs it to.
One of the hot things in the news and in the media and social media, people seem to be on one side of the fence when it comes to raising taxes. Where do you stand on that?
Well, you know, the legislature just repealed the most recent sales tax. We do know that there was a big cut to our general fund. GMH is short of funding, and of course DOE as well. You know, the problem is that we do need to make sure that we do have funding for critical services in our government, whether that's an increase in taxes or an increase in fees. I don't want to discount any option. I think we need to look at a solution. It's not easy enough to just say, no, this isn't a good enough option. And I'd like to look at all possible options, whether it's raising taxes, increasing fees, or consolidating government agencies. I think that we have to have a solution. That's what our people deserve. And so it's too early to discount anything.
Right. If you do make it into the 35th legislature, is there anything that you would like to chair specifically?
Definitely the Committee on Innovation and Youth Development. That would be the one. I'm also a big fan of the Committee for Veteran Affairs as well. I have a very close connection to veterans. I mentioned that my grandparents raised me. My grandfather was a proud veteran. He's actually the reason why I decided to enlist in the military later on. I had the chance to work during my days at EOG on some veteran-centered projects, and I really saw the shortfall that our veterans experience. But definitely, like I said, Committee on Innovation and Technology and Youth as well, youth development. It's
got to take a lot of discipline for somebody like yourself to just continue to push yourself when people in your generation are not where they would like to be. And I see you as somebody that's very inspiring, not just to your generation, but even to somebody like myself, seeing everything that you've already pursued and accomplished. It kind of just makes me feel like, man, I need to catch up. Is there something that you would like to let anybody out there know, younger generation, my generation, older generation? Would you like to inspire them into fulfilling what they need to do?
You know, the drive from me comes into seeing my island, and I know there's issues in our island. There's all of us talk about the issues. You know, we talk about it on social media, in conversation. And what really drives me is, instead of just talking about the problem, I want to be the driving force to be the change that I want to see in my island community. And I encourage everyone to look at it that way. And that includes going out to vote. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I humbly ask everyone for their vote. But that's one way that you can participate and be the change, is elect leaders who will be the driving force for the change you want to see on your island.
Is it difficult working with people that are a lot older than you, that look at you as like, wait a minute, you're too young, you don't tell me what to do?
Yeah, I've been told that numerous times. You know, there's no secret that I've been told I was too young, but I take it as a learning experience. You know, there's people who have been in positions like mine for a lot longer. I've worked with the Commission on Decolonization, and they have been great to me. That's my age has never been an issue. And I think that every person that you interact with, it should be a learning experience, whether it's a positive or a negative. It's an opportunity for growth. That's how I feel.
Well, we only have a short amount of time left to get to know you. Where on social media or anywhere can we find out more about you and your platform?
Sure, you can follow me on Instagram, Amanda Blas. Francel is Francel. And my Facebook page is facebook.com/AmandaBlas2016. So, and kind of in leaving off, a lot of people ask why I use Francel.
Okay.
So Francel is actually a combination of my grandparents' names. So I mentioned they raised me, Francisco Cepeda Blas and Cecilia Santos Blas. They were two of the people who inspired me a lot, who pushed me to be where I am today. So I definitely use that name to pay homage to them.
Man, Amanda, it was a very interesting conversation with you, so much so I didn't even have any coffee the whole time. So here it is, Coffee with the Candidates right here. My name is Polyak Suba. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here. You tune in, continue to stay with us, because we have Janella Carrera, your PNC News Director. She'll be talking with our first congressional delegate right here on Coffee with the Candidates. Now I get to finally drink.
Hafa and welcome back to Coffee with the Candidates. I'm your host, Janella Carrera, for this segment, and joining me is Senator Michael Nicolas. He's a candidate for Congress. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us on Coffee with the Candidates.
My pleasure, Janella. Thank you for having me.
All right, so you're here, and we've got some icebreaker questions for you to begin with. So these are kind of like the fun questions we'll get out of the way just to, break the ice. Netflix and Hulu, do you watch them? And if you do, what do you have, or what would we find if we were to turn it on?
Oh my goodness, I have both.
Okay, good.
On Hulu, I like to watch, there's a series called The Good Doctor.
Oh.
Yeah, it's about this young man
That's
who...
our show.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I really enjoy it, partly because my son is autistic also. And so I really like watching these shows that kind of touch on autism and see how, how the world at large kind of views the autism spectrum. So I enjoy that show on Hulu. Netflix, I've been binge watching West Wing to get ready for Congress. and Madam Secretary, both have been very, very entertaining.
Fits you very well. It's all, Washington and very politics.
Yep,
yes. What about at a fiesta? What would we find on your plate?
All the Calaguans. I will load up on all the Calaguans. If you want to have the best fiesta and you want me to talk about it after I leave, have every Calaguan.
All right. And in terms of music, what kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to the oldies stuff.
You seem like an oldies stuff type of guy.
Yeah, I'm totally an oldies guy. It's funny because we'll be in the karaoke bar and somebody will start singing some of the Cat Stevens or some of the Simon and Garfunkel, and I'll be singing along and they'll be looking at me like, how old are you? But I love that stuff. I mean, it's very meaningful music,
Yes.
And then it spoke to the times and the changing that was going on in the country, and I find that very special.
When music actually had meaning.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, we got some of the fun questions out of the way. We're going to go more into the serious questions now.
Sure.
You're going for a change of scenery. after, what is it, 2-3 terms in the legislature. Now you're running for Congress.
Yes.
First of all, why have you decided to take that position or run for that position?
Congress has a lot of needs for Guam that we need to address. Our biggest challenge right now is that we've been going on 16 years of kind of doing the same kind of thing in Congress. And we have a lot of legacy issues that are no closer to being resolved today than they were 16 years ago. As a senator over these last 6 years, we've tackled some major issues. And we've done so in spite of a lot of opposition internally, a lot of opposition from higher ups and the powers that be. We were still able to get things done. And I really feel like in Congress, that's what we need to do now. These legacy issues aren't any closer to getting resolved. Compact impact, veterans, Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, SSI, all of these things are still, hanging out there. And until we begin to address them with a different kind of approach, an approach that we execute very well here on Guam, to get these major issues addressed, we're not going to get them fixed. And a lot of our people have been waiting for a very long time to get these things resolved. We know how to do it, and that's why we want to do it in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Guam, in Washington, D.C., especially because we're a non-voting, territory, what kind of strategy would you employ to ensure that our voices, your voice, is heard if you are elected?
The non-voting status of our delegate will never change unless we have a political status change or unless Congress changes that. But in order for us to be consequential to other congressmen, we can address that in a variety of ways. We can, of course, develop relationships with them and hope that those relationships bear fruit. That's a very long-term strategy. It's a strategy that the sitting delegate has employed for quite a while. But it also has risk. Because if that delegate that you spent all these years making friends with suddenly retires or runs for higher office or gets defeated, all that goodwill that you've been building over all those years is lost. What is more lasting is if we were to be able to reach out into the constituencies of these various districts and win the hearts and minds of the people in these districts, then it doesn't matter who that delegate is, because their supporters will want the change that we're looking for.
They'll rally for us.
That's right. And the way we do that is we got to repackage our issues to no longer make it just be about how do we fix this for Guam, but we've got to package it so that everybody understands that these are problems that are affecting America. When someone with disabilities can go to another territory and all of a sudden they're not getting the same support they were getting in the States, that's a problem for every American with disabilities. Because you never know if you're going to get transferred to Guam or transferred to some other territory and then you're left in the cold. I don't think any veteran in any state would be happy to find out that the veterans from Guam who are being recruited at the largest number per capita are also getting the least amount of support in the country. I mean, that's a problem that every American can rally around. So we need to repackage our issues, take our issues to the constituencies of these various congressmen, win the support at the grassroots, and from there, get the change that we're looking for.
You mentioned it earlier that our non-voting status wouldn't change unless, it would take an act of Congress. Speaking of an act of Congress, if we were to ever get that opportunity to vote at a plebiscite, to vote for our political status, how would you ensure that our voices are heard in Congress to be able to act on whatever decision we vote for our political status?
Guam needs to be put on the map. And it's very disturbing because when I was out in D.C. back in September of last year, I went to the Department of Interior and we spoke with the Bureau of Indian Affairs to discuss tribal options for Guam. And these guys in there, they were asking me questions like, do you have 3 branches of government? Do you have a legislature? And here I was, this is the Interior. This is the agency that oversees Guam. And there's such a lack of awareness of what we're going through here on the island.
It's like everybody who says, do you still live in coconut huts or huts and wear coconut grass skirts?
Right. And when we encounter that, like at the supermarkets or wherever, and people are asking us that, that's one thing. But when federal agencies are that unaware of our circumstances, it's a real eye-opener. And so if we want the voice of our people to be heard and the changes that they want to have achieved on a political status level to be taken seriously out there, we really got to put Guam on the map. And for us to have gone 16 years and still be that much out of sight and out of mind, it's going to make everything else that we try to do here locally so much harder.
What about the military? You know, with the buildup coming up or already in the process, and you know the rights of the indigenous people becoming ever more urgent. How would you ensure that Chamorro or lands are returned to the people of Guam, the people who previously owned them before the military took them away?
Well, we need to be very, very clear about what lands we're talking about. There's a lot of land that was taken through eminent domain, and the eminent domain process. What we need to be mindful of is that that's not something that's unique to Guam. Eminent domain is a process that's done all across the United States.
Right.
And if we're going to try and reverse eminent domain just here on Guam, we're going to open up the possibility for that to be reversed all throughout the country. And that's going to definitely be a non-starter. I mean, as much as we want to be able to look people in the eye and say, we're going to get you your land back, if it was taken through a process that's going to affect the entire United States, it's going to be next to impossible for us to be able to reverse that just here on Guam and then open up the door for that to happen across the country. What we instead need to do is evaluate every single land taking on a case-by-case basis, find out if there's anything within that taking that is inconsistent with what is applied throughout the United States, and if there is an inconsistency, pursue justice that way. If it's consistent, it becomes very challenging, and we need to just be upfront with our people about that.
One of the issues that's facing the Guam community today is, you know, the topic of GMH and a dedicated funding source. And just recently, Governor Calvo reached out to Congresswoman Bordallo for her assistance, since she's at the federal level. If you're elected, how would you continue that communication, or what would you do, either the same or differently, to ensure that we get the help that we need for our only public hospital?
You know, I think that we need to reverse it and kind of look at the optics here. GMH is at risk of losing these things because we have failed dramatically at the management level to be able to meet the standards and expectations of the federal government. For the delegate to go there and say, can you give us these exceptions, or can you help us out this way? And for them to look back and say, but you guys are screwing it up so bad, it actually undermines the purpose of the delegate, because then everyone thinks that they're coming to you asking you for something that you're really screwing up on your own. I think that as delegate, this is something that I would definitely do differently. I'm not going to just go there and blame the federal government for everything. I'm going to look back and say, I'll definitely go out there and do that, but you guys need to fix these things. Because so long as we're not fixing these issues, it's undermining the delegates' work out in Washington, D.C. Because now CMS looks at GMH and they say, you guys don't have your act together. We're not going to increase your reimbursement rates. And here we are, they're already going to take it away. You know, so if we really want to power up our federal agenda, we need to stop just trying to create excuses for why things are, or try and say that, oh, as a delegate, I'm going to go out there and fix it, when you're really just adding to the problem. We need to be willing to look back and look at ourselves and say, this is our issue. Governor, you need to fix that management problem. Once you fix that, I'll definitely be able to go over there and carry the torch, because then I'll be able to go back and say, we're working on our issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have much time left, but my last question, and probably goes into the closing part of this, is, incoming Congresswoman Bordallo has, like you mentioned, has been at this for quite a long time, and it's been really difficult to defeat her. And here you come, this sort of stallion comes in and says, you know what, I want to take a crack at this. What makes you the better candidate for Guam?
I think the people of Guam will decide that. I think that both of us have a very clear track record of how we lead. Our leadership styles are very different. She's very laissez-faire. She tries to build relationships and tries to keep everything very friendly, and there's a time and a place for that. But for me, I drive issues based on merit. I rally people to try and get behind them, and I move things with a sense of urgency and assertiveness so that we can get them done. And I think that a lot of our issues here on Guam at the federal level, they've just not been able to move with the kind of leadership that our current delegate provides. I think it's time to try a different approach. And we're a non-voting delegate. We don't have very much to lose. And if we're not getting anywhere right now with the type of leadership that we have in place, then it's time for us to try a different style.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much,
Senator
Janella.
Nicolas, and we wish you the best of luck on your run for delegate of Guam. And thank you so much for being here once again. So that's Senator Michael Nicolas running for Congress. And thank you also to Miss Amanda Blas, who was here earlier with Polly Suba. That's it for Coffee with the Candidates. Until next time.